Just a few words from me about certain books that are going to be edited so that phrases that might be, or words or phrases that might cause offence to modern ears are going to be removed, and other phrases are going to be inserted instead. So it turns out that due to a public backlash, they're now going to produce two versions of famous books like this James Bond book. The original, unaltered, that includes the hurty words, and the new revised politically correct versions. Now, what I think is going to happen here is that when you want to buy Ian Fleming's Live and Let Die or Roald Dahl's Danny the Champion of the World in the future, in a bookshop or on Amazon online, mysteriously the original versions will always be out of stock, and instead you'll only be able to buy the new politically correct newspeak versions. So that's basically what they're trying to do. So there was a censorship that was there. They pushed back. Okay, so they're still going to censor it, but it's going to be less in your face. So why does all of this matter? Well, I think the first thing to say is that our culture matters. This is our culture, and indeed, some of these books are quite old. This is our history, and those things shouldn't be altered. I'm fans of both of these books, and I've got one person to thank for that. This guy called Jonathan, who was the head of English at the last school that I taught at. I was there for 15 years, and this when my son was born, well, not when he was born, but basically when he was about 4, 5, 6, I was asking him, like, what sort of things should I read to him, or get him reading, and he basically gave me two suggestions: Roald Dahl and Ian Fleming, particularly the Bond series. And wow, he was so right. I'd never read these books myself because I really came from an uneducated background myself. I think my dad read one book to me, and that was when we were on holiday. It was Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, which I loved. Anyway, I begged him to read to me after that, but it never happened. He was probably very busy or whatever. But I'm very grateful that he did read that to me. So when I was a father myself, I was very keen on wanting to do the whole bedtime story reading things. So it was Jonathan that put me onto these two. Starting off with this one, and then moving on to all sorts of other books as well. It was a fantastic time in my life, basically, every night reading these brilliant books, these brilliant novels, and also a bit of Bible reading as well, children's Bible. So in terms of Bond, what was really good about this was it was particularly reading it to a boy growing up. There was some there's masculinity in there. It's important for boys to understand what it is to be a boy and what men do. And there's also, like, I would say Bond, the character in here, is resilient. He sorts his problems out. He's resourceful. Obviously the PC mob say that there's some stuff in here that's racist in this book, but if you actually read the book itself, the main character in here is this person called Mr. Big, and he's this like big Fleming describes him as being this big African guy, and the way that Fleming characterizes this Mr. Big is entirely positive. He portrays him as being like this Superman, highly intelligent, physically unbelievably strong. The very opposite of what somebody who was racist would portray a black person as. They wouldn't portray them as being intelligent, resourceful, strong. They wouldn't do that. And then the other thing as well, if you understood anything about Ian Fleming, was that he spent most of his later years living in the Caribbean, which is, of course, the ideal destination if you were a racist. Not. In terms of the Roald Dahl books, people objecting to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and fat shaming and stuff like that. Again, it's just absolute nonsense, basically. This book in particular, Danny the Champion of the World, that was my favourite of the lot, because there's some really powerful messages about love between a father and his son, and how important family is, which I think is a very, very powerful message that needs to be communicated to young people, that they're not allowed, that families are really, really important and love is important. So it's no surprise that the Marxists, the PC mob, want to book burn these or take out, amend these books so that they lose their potency. So basically, what can we do about all of this? Well, what I would say is, go and buy these books. What I would do is buy them second hand, and buy the original unadulterated versions, or if you can, still buy some of these before the stock gets exhausted and the new politically correct nonsense comes in. Do that. But once you've got them, store and keep them. Each of us needs to assemble in our own homes a mini library of Alexandria rather. And then obviously once we've got these books, is use them and share them with others, physically. People who are friends, lend books to each other, act as almost like our own mini library lending service, so that these books, they're not just gathering dust on the shelf, they're actually being used by people. So because there are some fantastic messages in these books. How do we know? Well, they want to get rid of them. That's why we know that these books are important. So we've got to start using them. We can't have these ideas, these principles being lost from our culture. Yeah, and obviously, if you've got small kids, it's so. I want to say it's so important, but it's so rewarding to read to your own kids. And then talk to other people about books that you've been reading, and ideas, and swap ideas. It's a way of keeping these aspects of our culture alive, because this is what's going on. These people, they are Marxists. They want a year zero. They want to wipe away our old culture and come up with something new. Again, you can see it all. It's all in 1984, isn't it? The news speak. They want to change what we can and can't say. Yeah, and that's it. Really, is obviously things like Kindle are no good at all, because they could even change what the content of a book without having to reprint it. They can just change it electronically through the internet. So yeah, that's it's another example, I guess, of what we should be doing is moving back to an analog world. It's very hard for them to change these things. These books exist. Buy them, keep them, use them. And obviously, that also applies to the Bible too, because I think sadly it's just a matter of time. Well, some people would argue that they've already been corrupting the Bible, and they've been doing it for a long time. So, and it's King James only. Well, I'd have a lot of sympathy with that point of view. But we've got to buy these hard copies of these books now, keep them, store them, use them, share them, keep these ideas alive, keep our culture alive. And I think we can do that. I think we can. It's very easy for us to do that. So that's all I want to say today. So God bless.